part of why we've been successful, and we have been successful. There have been people for 10 years trying to take me down, trying to take ABFM down, trying to take everybody in the men's movement down. Yet here we are, growing anyway, is because we have a healthy measure of not giving a fuck what they say about us at all.
So, just to start off with, is this the 5th year or the 6th year?
It's the 5th year. It's the 6th year since we've started them. We missed 1 year, 2015, but we've had them every other year. Okay.
And in terms of kind of how it's growing, just in terms of size and stature, has it sort of just kind of gradually every year kind of grown?
The word from attendees is that, and we have several people that have come to all of them, is that they get a little bit better each year. A little bit bigger. It's a slow growth, but a few more speakers each time, a little more diversity in the speakers, and a little more diversity in the crowd each time. So, it's a growing phenomenon and doing quite well.
Okay, no, because that's certainly something I've heard from people this year, that there is a diversity in the kind of conversation and the debate. So it's not really an echo chamber, which is something people worry about. In terms of how you personally feel about its developments, I'm assuming it would have been a personal struggle to start off, because you started the first conference. So how do you feel about kind of the fact that it's 2019 and you're in Chicago and we are where we are?
It is amazing. I look back at this and it's hard to believe. I mean, this started literally in 2013 when I was just having a casual conversation with Tom Golden, who's been a friend for 10 years now. And he said, you need to have a conference. And I thought, what a great idea. It'll be simple. Just have a few people together and it's no big deal. Oh man, was I wrong. And it turned out to be a nightmare. There were death threats. We had to change venues at the last minute because the hotel pulled the plug after the death threats. And we got it done. We scrambled. It still came off to be a great conference. And that experience made me understand how important the conference was. That if they were going to work that hard to try to keep us from coming together in public and expressing our ideas and supporting each other, then they must be really scared. And they are. They're terrified of us.
And what do you think they're so afraid of?
Well, because, I hate to be oversimplistic, but they're lying. We're telling the truth. They've been lying about men and women and masculinity and femininity and gender for 50 years, telling one bald-faced lie after another. It has hurt women, it's hurt men, it's hurt children, but they've made a lot of money from it. Because there's a lot of money in casting women as victims. You show a woman with bruises on her, oh man, the dollars, they just keep coming in. Show a man with bruises, whatever, it's a joke. So we're never going to make the money that feminists do. We have to do this because it's true. Not because it's a popular idea or a moneymaker. And that scares them because their funding is wrapped up in the lie.
When I started really thinking about this area, the funding turf war struck me as the kind of the most obvious thing. It struck me as kind of, why would people kind of portray or react in such a negative manner to something if they're not interested in it? They don't have to come to a conference about men's issues, but why be so afraid of it? And I would certainly agree. I think it is more than money, though. Is that fair? It's about the kind of power structure.
The power structure, political influence, and people's personal identities. Understand that these ideologues have their whole worldview wrapped up in what they believe. Believe me, there's a lot of them that know they're lying. A lot of them know they're stretching the truth, but most of them truly believe that men are oppressors and women are victims, and that we live in a patriarchy where men benefit from the sweat and toil and abuse of women. They really do believe that nonsense. And to take that away from them is to take away their identity. And of course, that's not what we're actively trying to do. We're not trying to take anything from anybody.
Yeah.
But lies hurt people, and the truth generally ameliorates problems. And so we're telling it, and that happens to threaten their identity.
Yeah. No, I personally I find it so strange that concept of if something is so abhorrent or so untrue, why worry about people saying it? Because it will be so painfully obvious. So from that respect, it just strikes me as so significant the amount of smears and attacks that, well, we're going to talk about yourself personally, but the kind of men's rights movements has, to the extent that sort of I've met people who think terrible things about men's rights, but have never actually looked at it at all, literally. So anyway, to keep stick on a positive slant for a minute, what do you hope for the next years to come? If we've kind of we've reached this stage in terms of the size and the spread and the diversity, and there's a lot of kind of media here. What's next?
I want to answer that question by also including a follow-up on what you just said.
Sure.
About mainstream people and their reaction to this. It scares them too. Society relies on men being selfless and sacrificing themselves. We do. We rely on men to crawl down into the sewers, to put on diving suits, to go down and work underneath oil rigs, and all manner, and the military, of course. We are a society that really needs men who will sacrifice. And if we start talking about men as human beings, having needs and wants and vulnerabilities, then that threatens that very idea. So it scares people, and I get that. The idea of men not living to serve the world around them, I think it's a false fear, though. I think it's in men's nature to take risks, to do things like that, to make money, to win. And so they will do that anyway, but I think there's a general fear in the public, and it's why this movement is so slow to grow, is that there's a general fear that, man, if you start treating men like human beings, who's going to walk down the dark alleys at night? Who's going to take on those dangerous jobs and sacrifice for their families? That's an irrational fear, but it's a fear that does come with this. So what I see for the future is very slow growth. And a growth that ironically hinges on the continued destruction inflicted on society by feminism and by feminist ideologues. Because men don't tend to get ready to become a part of this movement until they've been hurt by not being a part of it.
Yes.
And then they say, suddenly they find religion. Oh, yeah, well, maybe Paul Elam isn't full of shit. Maybe he's saying something true now that they've taken my kids away. And now that they've taken my home and my money and put me in jail. And so we grow slowly. Feminism is doing progressively more damage as time goes by, which is directly feeding the slow growth of this movement. And some guys will never get. Some guys will have their children taken away, their home taken away, and as soon as they have enough money, they'll find another wife. So our growth will be slow, but it is 100% worthwhile for the men in it who are getting the benefit. Because that is saving lives.
And that's so. I mean, essentially, people who engage with the movements potentially get something personally out of it that helps the movement to grow. But people outside of it, kind of, it may grow slowly, but those are two almost separate things that sort of you can, if somebody is engaged with men's rights, they may find some personal development or somebody to listen, I think, is something that strikes me as...
What I get mostly from people is that somebody who articulated what they've had in their mind and couldn't find words to express. And that they finally hear somebody saying what's been going on and all the turmoil and everything. And that, for many men, is just a sudden rush of release, of relief and validation that they've desperately needed.
I absolutely recognize that. One thing somebody said to me yesterday, which I thought was significant, they were being quite critical about this conference and about the really kind of the benefit of it. I think they were viewing it as maybe a talking shop, essentially. But significantly, they said that this is mainstream now. This is a mainstream issue. And I thought that was significant because I think on the one hand, that's absolutely not the case. But on the other hand, it is increasingly becoming true. It's very significant, the difference in media here this year. And I could be proven wrong, but I think the outputs, the outcome of the media, whatever they broadcast and whatever they say about the conference, I don't think it will be purely smears. I think there will be more engagement with the issues. Do you think is that too optimistic, or?
No, I don't think it's too optimistic, and it is becoming mainstream. It's interesting how that's developing, though. Like now, I was just in another interview, and I was mentioning I saw Candace Owen recently on Fox News, just totally destroying a feminist. I mean, just cutting her down to using the same talking points that you could have read on ABFM 10 years ago.
Yes.
We influenced that. Yeah. The men's movement is influencing that, and now we have people out there that are using the same jargon, using the same talking points, talking about all the issues, but of course they're not like MRAs.
Yes.
And I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm totally fine with that. However we get there, it's cool with me.
Yes.
But it is interesting to see that phenomena happen. Karen Strawn and I call those people our children.
Yeah. Yep.
And I won't mention any by name because that would embarrass them. But some of them are speaking here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, because that's something. I'll tell you a little bit of background about one of the projects I do on my channel. I'm working on a series called Problems with Men, okay? And it's essentially, the focus is about, so if anybody, there are a lot of people in this world advocate for the rights of men. Now, they may not do it in the same way that it's viewed in terms of men's rights.
Right.
But if they really stop to think about it, if they're promoting equality of opportunity apart from anything else, they're men's rights advocates.
Right.
So I've been trying to break down the barriers, because it's kind of unpicking all these pieces. It's like an onion, and you will know this. There's so many issues, and it's about kind of criticisms of men's rights activism. It's about the kind of structure of the sociological theories of patriarchy and toxic masculinity. So I'm kind of working through that, and one of the things I've got to the stage of is the thing about smears, and I want to ask you about smears in a minute. But one of the kind of the main attack points about men's rights activism is that it doesn't do anything practical to help men, okay, and B, and I've addressed these, so I'll send you the video, but B, that it attacks feminism, okay. Now,
they say that like it's a bad thing? Yeah.
Oh no. It's just those are the two common criticisms.
Oh, okay.
You'll be familiar with that, I presume. Basically, if to belittle men's rights activism, people say, well, all it does is attack feminism, and as you say, as if that's something that's a bad thing. It's more a case of kind of that. I would say it's impossible for men's rights activism not to talk about feminism, because it's the monopoly show, it's the major infrastructure that impacts. So I think it's a non-argument.
There is, and this is not a defensive reaction.
Sure.
There is a huge amount of ignorance in those kind of statements, and let me explain why. One, yes, I mean, you can't talk about gender issues without bringing feminism into the discussion. It's impossible. And yes, we're critical of feminism. There's plenty of very good reasons to be critical of that. But it's been long stressed, for instance, on ABFM, which is the flagship of the men's movement, online anyway, that we're not just dealing with feminism. That, yes, criticize feminism, but the picture's bigger than that. There's more problems. I've said it a couple of times on the mic today, we're looking at much more than just feminism. As far as it hasn't done anything practical for men, my email inbox proves that's untrue.
Yeah.
With the literally dozens and dozens of men I've heard from who were saying, I was thinking about taking myself out until I found your work or Karen Strawn's work, and now I feel sane and I'm rebuilding my life toward wholeness. And when you come to one of these conferences, you see that in action going on all around you. If that's not a practical benefit, I don't know what is.
It's a cheap shot. It's an easy argument.
Sure.
But if you look,
it's a nonsensical.
It's a nonsensical. If you look at the concept of feminism, a lot of high-profile feminists are about battering, lobbying. They're not necessarily building shelters either. They're lobbying governments to build shelters.
For this. And we're never going to be a movement. AVFM has never endorsed a political candidate. We've never lobbied for the passage of a law. We don't have delegates that go to Washington. I live 4 hours from Washington, D.C. I've never been there to do any work. I've been there to see friends and party, and that's it. But we don't do any of that stuff because we're focused on reaching men directly. We've got this beautiful thing called the internet. And we don't have to get permission from the mainstream media to reach out to men with a message that's healing for them. And that wakes them up and gives them a red pill to eat. We don't have to wait for that. That's what we do. So, I mean, I take it as a compliment. If somebody thinks that we're not doing any good for men, then they must not care about men very much.
Okay. And I think that leads me on to the thing about smears. That sort of basically you don't have to ask permission to have your website or to talk to men, or the internet it's a free currency of people can choose to check out your website or not. They can choose to come back. They can talk to you. They can listen to your websites. So a big trend clearly is. I want to ask you about the Southern Poverty Law Centre. Okay. I think that's the kind of core one. But you clearly have been smeared or attacked numerous times, and
not just smeared and attacked. I have been designated as a one-man hate group.
Well, yes,
I'm actually on their hate map.
On that, and I want to talk specifically about that, but also about the implications of why that's done, because obviously it has personal implications for you, but clearly it creates a chill factor for other people to maybe even check out your website, let alone write for it or talk about men's rights. So
we have a lot of pseudonyms.
That's
absolutely true. Well, there's that, but there's also a rapidly growing contingent of the population that knows that the SPLC is a joke. They've named a family-friendly group that was opposed to gay marriage. They put them on a hate map because they oppose gay marriage. You know what? I don't even oppose gay marriage. I don't have a problem with that. But this is all this group did, is that they said we believe that a marriage should be a man and a woman. Put them on a hate map. They're their own worst enemy. They put everybody and their brother on a hate map, and they never put people on the left. Never put left extremists. They have destroyed their own credibility. They have financial doings that are dirty as they can possibly be. There are a bunch of hucksters that are conning money out of people that were in their prime of age in the late 60s and 70s when they actually did some good by going after the Klan. But anymore, they're just a money-maker machine and a joke. Nobody takes them seriously. You can tune in to Fox News every night and watch Tucker Carlson. Anytime somebody mentions the SPLC, he just laughs. And that is representing a lot of people now. So I wear it as a badge of honor.
I think that's right. My wife always tells me that this subject matter is not real. Okay, and she says that in the sense it's a bit like sort of cats and dogs. Like a dog will recognize another dog, but it won't necessarily be bothered about what else is happening in the world. Most people, kind of don't really think about this subject. And so, I agree that there's a wider population that would be aware of the Southern Poverty Law Centre's problematic background and work. And, once you start to look at their research or what they're saying, it falls apart very quickly. We have a similar organisation in GB that has started a similar tactic of attacking the likes of Justice for Men and Boys and Mike Buchanan as being that gateway to the far right.
Poor Mike.
And the difficulty is with the people that don't pay attention, because the newspapers, all the newspapers that the feminists kind of have to do is say, well, that organisation has produced a report that says this. Now, it may be very, very easy to debunk it, but that's what sticks in people's minds.
Sure, it sticks in people's minds. But again, part of why we've been successful, and we have been successful, there have been people for 10 years trying to take me down, trying to take ABFM down, trying to take everybody in the men's movement down. Yet here we are, growing anyway, is because we have a healthy measure of not giving a fuck what they say about us at all. These people are literally human garbage. They thrive off of lies, off of destroying people just to get their way on an agenda. I don't have any investment in caring about what they say, and for the people that believe them, they can tell me, I read you were... and I say, oh, you read I was a one-man hate group. Can you explain how that works?
And that's I suppose that's the killer question I'm leading up to. What would you say to somebody who's just, a normie, for one of a phrase, that concept? If somebody kind of meets you for the first time and says, I read somewhere that you're kind of, you sit next to white supremacists in the political map, what would you say to them?
Well, obviously, don't believe everything you read, but I would ask them to explain to me, how much information do you have to form an opinion that's going to stick? Do you need to read one thing in one publication if somebody says XYZ is bad? And then that means to you the settlement, it's settled, that person's bad? If I'm dealing with a person like that, I tell them, okay, you're welcome to your opinion, thank you very much. But with anybody who has any interest at all in having an informed opinion, then I can talk to them and I can respond to that. And eventually, those people aren't the ones believing just because the SPLC said. And so the people who thrive on ignorance, I'm never going to reach. And that's why, like I said, I don't give a flying fuck about them, because they're not reachable. They need this opinion in order to feel comfortable in their world. I'm fine with them to have it. Sometimes I'm worried a little bit about public appearances and stuff, and what some nutcase, might do, because there has been violence around that stuff. But generally, most people just go on about their lives. And they don't invest in it one way or another. And it has not, I don't believe, it's hurt the movement at all. The fact of the matter is, all you have to do is wear a red hat now, and you're attacked as a demon in this country. Wear a red hat? Oh my God.
Well, people like controversy, so I think that's the thing. It's kind of the message potentially gets out the more people shout about it. One thing I've seen in the UK is they seem to be developing this narrative. They're not saying it out loud, but because men's rights activism is becoming more mainstream, and kind of Mike Buchanan has that thing about, the quote about Gandhi, about sort of, they used to ignore you, then they laugh at you. I think they're at the stage of, kind of fighting. Fighting's not necessarily the best terminology, but sort of, so they are, for example, International Men's Day, a lot of the kind of mainstream media will embrace it now, but to talk about toxic masculinity.
Feminists are much better than we are, and they have more opportunity to co-opt things than we do. And so I don't give a hoot about International Men's Day. It's been ruined. It really has been. And it's not, as the founders intended it. One of the 4 pillars of International Men's Day was to examine and expose the institutional bias against men in this culture. They have removed that as one of their pillars, and they're talking about toxic masculinity.
And that's at the kind of the organizational level of that.
And that is because IMD organizers allowed it to happen. If they had not allowed it to happen, it wouldn't have. I was supposed to speak via Skype at an IMD celebration a few years back in Dublin. And feminists came to the Dublin City Council and had me removed from the agenda. This is their terrain. It's very hard to fight that. But we increasingly live in a society with a technology that we're not slaves
Yeah.
to mainstream media or to governance.
Yeah.
Okay, so they kicked me out of a IMD celebration in Dublin. We can reach just as many people the next day if we want to, doing something else.
Yeah.
So they're powerless to do anything about this.
Well, I suppose I kind of feel that we're kind of almost getting to a tipping point because it is becoming mainstream.
It is.
And to me, so this Hope Not Hate report that came out at the start of January in UK, which was linking the likes of Mike Buchanan, the gateway.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. I was surprised that a lot of people who advocate for men's rights, who are quite high profile, did not speak out about it or against it. I think for obvious reasons that they have a certain stance or certain sort of presence in the mainstream media, or they're
People like Glenn Poole.
okay. Well, don't want to single out names, but
Well, I don't.
Sure. Well, no, we
I
don't.
don't mind naming.
Yeah, that's
be
fine,
honest
that's
about
fine.
it. I think Glenn does good work.
yeah,
I think he also imagines that his version of activism is superior to others, and this is why he will happily throw people like Mike under the bus.
okay,
And it's a shame. We were just talking about this in this last discussion. It is a shame that that sort of thing happens, but it's just part of the movement.
yeah. I don't think there's necessarily a solution, but I just wanted to ask you about it because I feel it's those sort of crunch times. It struck me that you're almost getting to a point where men's rights is kind of accepted in the mainstream, so you have kind of good MRAs and bad MRAs.
And that's a part of a phase. In the end, the things that Malcolm X
Yeah.
said, because he was the bad civil rights
Yes,
leader.
and that's what
Martin
people
Luther
often
King was
say.
the good
You
civil
need a
rights
Malcolm X
leader.
as well as a.
But guess what? Malcolm X today is quoted just about as often
Yeah.
as Martin Luther King, because he was really saying the same things,
Yes.
except with more of an aggressive force
Yes.
to his words, which he had every reason to do, and so do men
Yeah.
now. This will be a phase that passes.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
I said in the last meeting, there are MRAs now that are doing great work but would not attend this conference.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's fine, because down the road, the objective isn't for me to be the right one.
Yes.
It's for men to quit getting screwed in our family courts
Yeah.
and put on trash heaps as disposable items when they come back from war mangled and ruined.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see end. And however we get there, I'm fine with that.
Okay. One final question. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully this has kind of taken us to the next stage. Then, if we're getting past, as you say, hopefully that will be a phase. One thing that surprised me, there are some people in the media, and it's mainly the British media, so you might not even be familiar with them. And again, I don't want to get into names, but there are people that I kind of very much respect in the media who, actively criticize feminism, and they criticize identity politics, and their, I suppose their kind of philosophy, and they speak kind of very much in favor of men's rights. So I've been surprised on occasion to hear them speak so disparagingly and so negatively about men's rights activists. Okay, and it's almost like it's sort of a throwaway kind of, they're just losers. It's partly that it's not a cool thing to be a men's rights activist, arguably. But
Yeah, and these are the same people that would not be using the rhetoric they're using had it not been for the work that we did kicking in doors.
and that's the criticism that gets leveled at them. The question I want to ask you, though, is I've been trying to work out, because it just struck me as kind of, why would they be so dismissive, because they seem to be so aware of all the issues around it. And the one bit that I kind of can connect with, I think there is some currency, is that there's a suspicion that kind of men's rights activism is almost an inevitable conclusion of the identity politics framework, where everybody becomes a victim. So I suppose the question is, how, as a movement, do we avoid kind of moving into that victimology as opposed to asserting rights and, kind of keeping control of our own empowerment?
That is entirely valid, and it is a concern of mine. It's why you see so often, anybody that really follows my work, I hold men's feet to the fire ruthlessly about their choices in life. I've always asserted that, yes, we need to address men's rights, but the fact of the matter is that 90% of men's rights issues could be avoided with proper decision making and thoughtfulness by men.
Okay. Yeah.
If you don't make dumb decisions, you don't end up in a bad system getting screwed.
Yeah.
And so I see that as a sort of an inherent part, inherent danger in any movement, that it takes the form of identity politics. But what do? Say, okay, we can't do this because it might turn into identity politics?
It's catch-22, absolutely. Yeah.
You have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And what I've chosen to do is to just do my part, to do whatever I can to send the message that turning this into poor me, the world owes me, the government owes me, people should cry for me, people should give me money.
Yeah.
Turning it into that would be a terrible mistake. But in the end, hopefully, we might see the phenomena that once everybody's a victim, then nobody's a victim.
Yeah. Paul, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Enjoyed the talk. For those of you who've heard my story before, I apologize for the repetition, but I'll try to make it brief and painless. In 1993, when I was the clinical program director for a residential substance abuse treatment facility, I stumbled on a book called The Myth of Male Power. And I read it in 3 nearly sleepless nights, a couple of times, and I felt like my life was changed. And I started noticing immediately a whole world of things that I had never seen before. Things that had been right in front of my face, this close, blaring like neon signs, and just was blind to them. And one of those things was how we treated men and women differently in a clinical treatment setting, how we literally viewed women all as victims and men as perpetrators. Even people that were coming from mental health services were being berated for their sex. It's amazing. And when I pointed out the ways that that was happening at the facility I worked at, my peers went ape shit. Oh my God, oh my God. I didn't mean they ran around like their hair was on fire. Just because I said something obviously true. And I thought, cool. Wow, that fits me to a T. Unfortunately at the time, I thought about it at the time, the internet wasn't really a thing. I said about a campaign of writing letters to editors, and sometimes they got published, sometimes not, mostly not. And eventually we had an internet that was reaching a lot of people, and I thought, man, if I could make my peers lose their shit just in that one small little setting, imagine what I can do with a tool like this. And I said, well, it's not like I want to make money at this, and so far that's working out real good. But I really wanted, and the more I did this, the more I learned, because there was even more to learn than what was in Warren's book, even though it's a huge volume of information. There was a lot more to learn. The more I invested myself in these issues, as they say in the Red Pill movie, the further down the rabbit hole I went, and saw the pain of men as a clinician in ways that embarrassed me, that I had never seen before. I was disgusted with myself that of all the million questions I had never asked into their lives. And so my work became a redemption for that. And like Mike, I'll do it until the day I stop breathing. Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome.
Can't you see it too? There's an elephant in the room.